Okay, I'm recording this for a blog a little bit later on, but one of the discussions I get into a lot, and I'm not sure people completely understand, is this thing about data quality. And what does that really mean? Well, what you want is store the least amount of data you can while still maintaining the information that's actually coming out of your control system. So in this particular case, I'm looking at a I'm using Pattern Discovery's Compression Insight tool right here. Great tool. If you ever want to use it, I can get you in touch with those guys. You need my help doing what I'm showing you here, be glad to do that. Really, it's an excellent tool, and this illustrates a great point that I think is a little bit misunderstood in the marketplace. So there's a couple of vendors out there that are historian vendors that will tell you do not throw away any data. Keep it all. And OSIsoft has always had this swinging door algorithm with exception and compression on each individual pi tag and each individual data stream that you're collecting. I actually think it's a really ingenious way of handling data and maintaining the curve that you need. So what you're seeing here is let me take a couple of these things off here, is this is snapshot data in gray. So this is 3,600 points that is coming in raw straight off the interface. So this is the basic raw sensor data. And this is the total usage of a raw material in a continuous process that it's probably off a flow meter or something. So anyway, here's the raw snapshot data. What they're archiving is 2,603 points, and it looks like it pretty does a really good job of replicating that curve. If I flip those on and off, you can definitely tell that they look, very similar. Well, one of the things that this tool does is it'll give you a recommendation, and it'll tell you, hey, here's what I think you ought to tune this at, but it really doesn't know what you really want from a data quality standpoint. It does a really good job of getting you kind of in the neighborhood, and I use its points quite a bit, but I don't always use them. But if you look, we're replicating that curve pretty well with 433 points. So that's let's see, 6 times less points. And there's a couple of peaks in here. If I zoom in, like say right there, it doesn't quite hit the peak. And is it really going to matter if it's 738 or 742 for, 15, 20 seconds? I don't know, maybe. So I really don't know, but to be safe, what I can do is I can kind of play around with this a little bit. So let's take the recommended off and let's take custom. Okay, we'll zoom in. Let's see, let's find one of these peaks here. So these two right here. All right, so you can see we kind of chop off a little bit. So I can say, hey, I want to keep, and if you look, like right now, the archive, they're keeping 71.9%, 72% of the data of the set 3,600 points. They're going to keep 72% of them. Okay, so that's going to take up a lot of data. It's going to take up bandwidth on your network. Okay, the recommendation was only for about 11%, and it's going to keep about 72% of the info, which is basically what it's saying. It's going to chop off some of this stuff. Okay, and it's going to keep 97.7% of the actual information that you need. So I'm going to kind of play around with this. What happens if I do, say, 95 and it does a little recalculation? It's just off screen there. Oh, well, that looks a lot better. Now I'm keeping 60% of the data. Well, let's see. Let me knock it down to like 82%. So what I'm trying to do is pretty much replicate the snapshot curve here and see what it gives me, but I want to use a little bit less data. So there's using 82% retention, or 82% of the information. That stores 21% of the actual data in the data archive that I have to actually pay for storage for. And if you look, it does a pretty decent job of replicating that curve Again, now I'm going to store 764 points versus 2600. Okay, so I'm a lot more comfortable, looking at this. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of noise, a few little things here, but I don't think that's going to be a huge thing for this particular point. It might be for something else. There might be, high-speed compressor data that you don't want to filter any of this out, and for that, yeah, you turn compression off and turn exception off, because there may be, you really need every piece of information that you want, but I wouldn't do that as a practice all the time. I would certainly take a look at the compression exception settings. But one of the things that I probably more often see than this is I see the other extreme. I see people store maybe 15 data points out of the 3600 on a curve like this. That's just as bad, probably worse actually. If you're gonna err on the side of collecting more data. But one of the arguments that these other historian vendors will say is you got to collect all the data. Well, the problem with that is that you take 24 hours in a day times 60 minutes in an hour times 60 seconds, and I've seen them. They'll show video where they're going to collect data every second off an OPC interface or an OPC data source. That's 86,400 points per day times 365 days a year. That's 31.5 million points. I just recently did a data pull out of a Pi system and grabbed over 500 tags for 3 years. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I did it only for like 3 months, and I did it at 5-minute intervals. Imagine doing 500 tags for a year at 1 second fidelity and not doing any kind of compression. So I multiply that times 500. Okay, you're going to collect 15 billion 15 billion data points, and I just showed you you don't need all of them, right, to replicate what's going on in the process. So if you have a vendor that is telling you you should collect all the data, I'd be skeptical, because I just don't think, my personal belief is I think you can replicate the curve in 95% of your cases, or maybe more, with a lot less data than what you think. So anyway, and again, pattern discovery, great tool here. And if you need me any help with this, give me a call. I can get you in touch with those guys. I can help you out with this. Really good folks, and they're always looking to try to improve this tool. But I just wanted to use this because I'm sitting here going through this exercise, and this blog that I've written is, or that I'm going to write, I guess. You're reading it, so has written, I guess, is the correct tense there. But it's really all about data quality, and this is the kind of stuff that I'm going through, because if you have junk coming in, your analytics that you're running with big data is going to stink. I'm just telling you. Or you're not going to be able to even get the data because there's too much of it. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox now, but thanks for listening.